And again, we include a column in our precipitation chemistry file for all of our primary species. So we've added a column here of organic carbon in the deep zone. Okay. So now we will run through very quickly how we did this in the input files. And so I've actually already set up these input files. So here we have Sleepers River respiration in the deep zone. And we will run that. Okay, so we're going to look at all these input files, just make sure that everything's set up correctly, kind of like a double check based on what we know. So first, again, we start with this chem.txt file. So we need to make sure we've included our primary species. So we've added our solid phase here. We've also added the solid phase in our mineral kinetic portion of our chem.txt file. So we'll make sure that this matches with our database file. So we'll open up our database, you can see our primary species there. And now in the, we'll check our reactions, deep zone. Okay, so we have the organic carbon deep zone reaction network set here with the stoichiometric coefficient defined. And then we need to check our mineral kinetic block. So we have it listed here, label test, which matches the label that we set in our chem.txt file. So it will look to the right place. We have it specified as Monod reaction rate. Okay, perfect. Make sure we have everything saved. Then we'll look at our initial conditions, make sure these are all set up correctly. So we have added our new solid phase in each of the zones. Again, and so this is set to a very low concentration, SSA 0. So this reaction really isn't happening in the shallow zone. And then we have these set to the deeper zone where we have a greater availability of the reactive solid phase. Make sure that's saved. And then we'll check our precipitation chemistry files that we've added our solid phase here, and we have so OC in the deep zone solid phase set there. Okay, so we have everything set. This is called Sleepers River respiration in the deep zone. So we'll run that period / BioRT Sleepers River resp in the deep zone. Sleepers River resp in the deep zone. Okay, and so that's ran. See here in our outputs, we have this here. Great, looks like everything ran and we got values for everything, so it looks okay. And so we will take this and we plotted it in R, which we can look at the output here. And we can compare. So this on the left is the figure we looked at in the previous video, where we only had shallow zone respiration included. And this second panel is when we've included deep zone respiration. So we can see the change in our concentrations. We can actually see that the deep zone concentration here has decreased and for DOC. And this is due to the consumption of DOC from this deeper zone respiration reaction. We can actually start to see that this lowers the deep zone concentration, which is when the flushing pattern that we most consistently correspond to DOC starts to emerge. So we can start to see as flow is increasing, we're getting this increase in concentration. As flow is increasing, we're getting more contribution from the shallow zone flow. And so the concentration is increasing to that shallow zone. If we didn't have this deeper zone respiration process, again, we wouldn't see that flushing happening as much as, again, most of the water that comes into the deep zone in a headwater stream comes from that shallow zone. So if we let the model run forever, we would eventually see the shallow zone and deep zone concentrations equal each other, which is pretty much what we see happening in this first panel, where deep zone concentration and shallow zone concentration are pretty similar throughout the year, or at least only very slightly around this baseline condition. Whereas we can see that there is a much greater difference in the concentration in the shallow zone and concentration in the deep zone of DOC when we have this deeper zone respiration process included. We can also see the change in concentration in DIC in the deep zone. We can see the increase in production of DIC from this deeper zone respiration process. As you can see, the shallow zone DIC concentration does not change much between the two cases. However, the deep zone concentration does. This really gives rise to a more distinct flushing pattern, or sorry, dilution pattern for DOC, where we see when deep groundwater is dominating during the drier times, we see more of the deeper groundwater in the stream. Whereas when flow increases, we start to see a dilution of DIC more towards the shallow zone DIC concentrations. When we have higher flows, more contribution from shallow soil water. What's interesting to note is to make these stark differences in concentration, the reaction rate of the deeper zone really isn't that high. So if we look, again, this is the results from just shallow zone implemented. So we can see the reaction rate there. However, when we compare it, when we've added the deep respiration processes in, see that the deep respiration reaction rate is order of magnitude lower than peak soil respiration reactions. So even though the reaction rate is so much lower, we can still see its impact on producing these distinct dissolved carbon stream dynamics. And that's the end of video 3 of implementing deep zone respiration. Video 4 and 5 will further examine implementing different carbon processes, but they will focus more on DOC and sorption processes and the two different ways we can implement sorption processes within our model. We can implement sorption processes via an equilibrium controlled reaction or a kinetically controlled reaction, which will be covered in videos 4 and 5 respectively. Thanks for watching.